the Abrahamic Covenant is not made with the church, and the church isn't even in view. And so those who bless Israel, bless the seed of Abraham in Genesis 15, are not specifically the church. It is civil units, families, clans. That's what's in view. So I think the primary application of the Abrahamic Covenant today would be in the civic realm.
Greetings and welcome back to this episode of Theologically Driven. I'm your host, Phil Cecil. We're looking forward to having Dr. Snoeberger on the podcast today to talk about modern Israel and how we should view them in light of the Abrahamic Covenant. I wanted to remind you about E3. This is our annual pastors conference that's coming up. Our theme this year is on leading through change and conflict. We'll have a number of good books to give away, a number of good workshops and general sessions for you to attend. I think this would be a great conference if you're in ministry looking to lead well through turbulent times. You can go to e3pc.org to register. If you're a prospective student interested in Detroit Baptist Theological Seminary, you can use E3 as a way to preview the seminary. It's a great opportunity to have some meals with the professors, get to know them, get to know a little bit about our seminary, and you can attend for free. So if you're interested in learning more about our seminary, you can go to e3pc.org/preview. You can learn more about Preview Weekend. We'd love for you to contact us if you're interested and want to learn more about that. With that, let's welcome Dr. Mark Snoeberger to the podcast. Dr. Snoeberger, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yes, sir.
So there's been a lot of talk in current events about Israel and specifically how we should think and relate to modern Israel. And a lot of people like to quote the Abrahamic Covenant as this. And so I thought we'd start just this week. President Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, had a press conference, and the Prime Minister had comments along those lines. So I thought we'd start by playing the clip, and then we'll get into talking about it.
Since October 7th, Israel's enemies have learned a hard truth. Those who attack us pay a heavy price. But those who partner with us advance progress and security for their peoples. President Trump just said it. It's also in the Bible. It says, those who will bless you will be blessed, and those who will curse you will be cursed. And that's actually what is happening.
So he goes so far as to say that, the blessing and cursing is exactly what's going on now. Favorable foreign policy towards Israel is providing blessing, and negative policy towards them is providing cursing. So what's he talking about there? Maybe just set the table. What's he quoting, and what are some of the issues at hand?
Okay. So the Abrahamic Covenant, formalized in Genesis 15, is made with Abraham and his seed, and it is just as Netanyahu said it, perhaps slightly different wording, but he got the gist of it. And dispensationalists have always believed in the inviolability of Israel's covenants. Furthermore, not only are they eternal, but the terms and the reference as defined can't change. So Abraham's seed in that context cannot be confused with the seed according to faith, right? So, both Feinberg and Bloch have in their books on what dispensationalism is, they both indicate that there are multiple senses of the word seed, but no one sense can swallow the others up. So, in other words, there are, within the semantic range of seed, are at least three uses. One is a biological descendants. One is a seed according to faith, and then the other is the singular seed that Galatians 3:29, I think, references. So there's three senses, but you can't just pick and choose whichever one seems helpful to you at the time, and that's what Reform tend to do. They tend to say, okay, the church is the recipient of all of Israel's promises because they are the seed of Abraham according to faith. But if we look at the original terms of the covenant, it's very specific that what is in view is a physical seed. In fact, Genesis 15 starts off with Abraham complaining, hey, I'm really old. I have no kids, and Eliezer the Damascite is going to receive my estate.
Right.
Well, if in fact the seed of Abraham according to faith is in view, that wouldn't be a problem. Why not Eliezer? Right. If he was a faithful man, he could fit the bill just as well as anyone. But no, God doubles down on this. He says, no, Abraham, a seed from your very loins will receive these promises. So it borders on crass to make sure that Abraham knows what seed is in view. And it's not the seed according to faith. It is the seed according to the flesh.
Yeah. And this is an important point in dispensationalism is that the text means what it meant at the time.
Correct.
We're not spiritualizing or changing it.
Yes.
So what then would be the current state of the Abrahamic Covenant?
Well, that's a little bit of a question mark. If we were to ask that question of the Mosaic covenant, we could say, well, the covenants of God are irrevocable and eternal, but there are curse clauses within the Abrahamic covenant, which means any given generation of Israelites might not be receiving the blessings of the covenant, but rather be under the curses. The problem is with the Abrahamic covenant, there are no curse clauses. Well, there is a curse clause, but it's only for the nations, right?
Right.
For those that
not towards Israel.
Right. So there's no curse clause for Israel. It's open-ended. It's unqualified. And so it would seem to me that there has to be some sense in which the terms of that covenant are still in effect today.
Yeah. So as the Abrahamic covenant is moving on, then it's still in effect. Then the question would be, who is the seed then of Abraham?
Well, the seed of Abraham is any physical descendants of Abraham. Now, I don't know that we want to make an unqualified statement that the current nation of Israel is that. I mean,
that was going to be my next question. If it's descendants, does that then mean the modern state of Israel?
Right, and I think in my research I discovered that 72% of modern Israel is of Jewish descent. The rest are not, and so, in the sense that they are a collective of the seed of Abraham, there's probably an oblique sense that it applies to the nation, but I don't want to go too far with that. Certainly, the promise extends to the seed of Abraham, the physical descendants of Abraham, and in some sense probably would include any modern civil collections of Israelites as well.
But it wouldn't have to be an organized group. So you're saying the we should bless the descendant of Abraham would include random descendants who live in America, for example.
Yes.
You should look favorably upon them. Is it more favorable than you would look upon other general people? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a good
question. Go out of
question.
your way?
That's a good question. I think I don't know if we're going to talk about what blessing is, but if you look at the terms blessing and cursing, and you look them up in Halot, for instance, the standard Hebrew lexicon, you discover that more than actions towards them is an attitude towards them. So to curse them is to firstly, to hold them in contempt, to disdain them. And then you have to go all the way down to the third definition before you come to something like is to neglect or abuse them.
Right, okay.
So it does seem like the blessing here would include thinking favorably about Israelites. Okay. My comparison that I make at the end of my essay that I wrote on this is to say it's kind of like your favorable treatment towards a child, for instance.
Okay.
So if you have a child, you are more concerned about their best interests than you are about the best interests of humanity in general, or even your neighbors, because this is your child. Okay. That does not mean that you are you support everything they do.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that you endorse anything that they do, because that wouldn't be. I mean, if they're doing something evil, it would not be in their best interest for you to do that.
Right.
At the same time, when your child does something wrong and fails catastrophically, you don't laugh, you don't gloat. Mm-hmm. You're disappointed because you have a special interest in them that is greater than that of humanity in general.
Yeah, last week on the podcast, we talked with Dr. Meyer about Obadiah and the Edomites who were gloating over the destruction of Israel.
Right.
And his point was to say we don't want to find ourselves in the position of being the instrument of God's judgment on his people because they're still held responsible for that. So if I'm hearing you correctly, then we should look favorably on Israel, but we shouldn't let that wipe away our morality.
Yeah, we still have a responsibility to justice and to righteousness, and so these ethical responsibilities that we have don't go away. It's not as though Israel trumps all that.
Right. And then it wouldn't really matter if there was a modern state of Israel or not, if I'm hearing you correctly. It's just the descendants in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's a big question as to whether the current modern state of Israel is sometimes called a pre-gathering of Israel. There's a couple of places in the prophets that sort of suggest that there is going to be a gathering of Israel before the final and great regathering. So, for instance, we find at the beginning of the tribulation, Israel makes a covenant of death with Antichrist. So they're already organized in some way. The valley of the dry bones, the bones coalesce together and lay there for a while before they actually come to life. So it's possible that we should look at that and say, yeah, there is going to be a pre-gathering of Israel. There's debate on that. And even if you do say, okay, there is going to be a pre-gathering, there's no guarantee that what we have here is that pre-gathering.
Right.
Okay. Right. It is possible for the current state of Israel to dissolve and cease to exist for 100 years, 1,000 years. This is no guarantee that this is the pre-gathering that anticipates the end.
Yeah. So if I'm hearing you correctly, then what the clip we played at the beginning, what Benjamin Netanyahu said was, we're seeing people who are blessing Israel or have a favorable disposition, say it that way, towards Israel, and that means then they will be blessed by God. Is that so? So in general, then I think an application of that is the United States should seek favorable foreign policy towards Israel.
Yeah, I think in general we should be favorable toward them. The devil's in the details, right? The specifics of it.
Right.
But I do think that we have to look at the Abrahamic Covenant and say there is something there for us today.
Yeah. So now that's why I asked the question about, but we can't divorce it from our morality. Because certainly if the state of Israel began unjustly attacking its neighbors, I don't think that's what they're doing. But if, let's say, they decided out of nowhere to go and attack some other country and we thought that was unjust, this doesn't give us a card to say, well, we just have to support them in whatever they're doing.
Correct, because it's not in their best interest for us to do that.
That's right. So there could be categories of responses in this way, because we all live in kind of if you're a believer, you find yourself kind of in two realms or two governments of God, right? Church and state. So are there differences in how those responses might look?
Yeah, I think very much so. The Abrahamic Covenant is not made with the church. Mm-hmm. And the church isn't even in view. And so those who bless Israel, but bless the seed of Abraham in Genesis 15 are not specifically the church. It is civil units, families, clans. That's what's in view. So I think the primary application of the Abrahamic Covenant today would be in the civic realm. That said, there are a fair number of dispensationalists who take that into the realm of the church as well. And so, for instance, when they read Romans 1:17, the gospel is first for the Jews and then for the Greeks, that this is some sort of a prescription. This is how the church is to carry out its mission. They need to seek the salvation of Jews first before they take the gospel to Gentiles. I've known of missionaries who have thought in those terms. They go into some city, you find the Jewish population and give them the gospel first, and then the Greeks. But there's a few reasons why I'm not sure that that's true. One is I don't think there is a priority for Jewish evangelism that is embedded in the Abrahamic Covenant. Okay, so number one. Number two, that's not a prescription in Romans 1:17. It's a description. This is the way it happened. And so then we ask, okay, what else could it mean? And I'm inclined to think that that's probably more of a chronological outworking of what happened in the book of Acts, right? So Jesus said, "You shall receive power, be my witnesses first in Judea, first in Jerusalem, then in Judea, then in Samaria, then the uttermost parts of the earth." So that's sort of the outline for the book of Acts. We also find in the Great Commission that we are supposed to make disciples of the nations, the goyim. Okay, and even the term that's used there in the Greek is often used of not Jewish, nations that are not Jewish, Gentile nations. So I don't. It seems like wherever we see a command, it's go to the nations.
There's no specific prescriptive command. You must go to the Jewish population first.
If we want to think in terms of theology, we are living in times of the Gentiles.
Right.
It does seem like the expectation would be that we would see more Gentiles converted during this time than Jews. Not that we withhold the gospel from Jews by any means, but whether we have to privilege them in evangelism is something I have doubts about. So, is there a responsibility for the church to bless Abraham, the seed of Abraham? I'm not sure that that's the emphasis that we should take.
Yeah. So if I could ask a follow-up here, your chart that you have used in dispensationalism for a long time where you lay out the two governments and you have the covenants charted out there. You have the Abrahamic covenant as a redemptive covenant. But earlier you were saying it's more of a civil issue. Help me see how that works together.
Right. When I put it in the redemptive sphere, what I'm saying is there's a lot of redemptive information that's included there.
Okay.
It
so like through your family, all the nations of the world will be blessed. You're saying is more of a redemptive. Is that what you're saying there, or maybe not?
Well, I mean, I think it includes that. I mean, certainly the coming of Christ is one of the means whereby the nations are blessed. But I don't think it's restricted to that.
Okay. All right. So then in the church, then that's what you're saying is that's not then a prescription for us to go to them first. Does so you just mentioned, we're in the time of the Gentiles and we see the commands for us to go to the nations, oftentimes nations used as a term for Gentiles, non-Jewish. Does that factor in Israel currently being under God's judgment in the way we view this?
I used to argue that way.
Okay.
But my realization that there are no curse clauses for Israel in the Abrahamic Covenant have given me pause.
Okay.
Because it doesn't appear that they are under Abrahamic curse clauses.
I see.
Mosaic,
under other curse clauses, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Mosaic, yeah.
So it takes that piece of the argument away, I think.
Okay. So because there's no specific curse clause operative now, you're saying the Abrahamic Covenant is still continuing on.
I mean, obviously they are under God's judgment in some sense.
Right.
But it does not seem like the Abrahamic Covenant is affected by that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good. Dr. Snoeberger, thank you so much for coming on today and for talking through this. Sure. It's kind of a sticky issue, and it can be, there's kind of a pop culture response to this in some ways.
Yeah.
So it can be difficult to really, work through it.
Yeah, and I would say that if you ask, I mean, there's sort of two divisions of dispensation. There's pop dispensationalism, and there's the dispensationalism of the academy.
Right.
The pop dispensationalism is all over the comments that Netanyahu would make.
Right.
Where I find that the dispensationalism of the academy is a little bit more reserved.
Yes.
In the areas that we talked about. So.
Right. Well, good. Well, thank you so much for the discussion, for helping us think through these issues.
Sure thing.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Theologically Driven. We hope it was helpful for you and you found value in it. If it was, we'd ask that you would share it with someone who might also get some value out of these episodes. Theologically Driven is a podcast of Detroit Baptist Theological Seminary. If you'd like to learn more about our seminary, you can go to dbts.edu.